Very quickly before this video starts, this video was meant to be just an innocent video about a competition that I entered. However, it will become apparent later that it kind of took a bit of a turn because of certain incidents that happened in the community which I am no longer a part of. I will explain more later, but in the meantime, please do not go out of your way to find this community and harass them. I'm simply making this video to show the really awesome build that I made and to also uplift and encourage people who have gone through a similar experience to me. On with the video. Hello friends! As the owner of a super duper outstandingly awesome Discord server full of really cool people, I have been able to host many events such as building challenges, but I've never actually participated in a building challenge or contest myself. And after finding out a community I'm in was planning on hosting one, you know I had to do it. And so I waited and waited for the announcement, and then finally, the announcement is out! Whoa, 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 whoa! Contestants are asked to build and submit ships, boats, and all kinds of seafaring vessels to partake. Oh god, I've only ever built a boat once and I gave up on the project, so this is going to be interesting. The building phase will last 2 weeks. Specifics. Entries may not exceed 50 by 150 studs. So we don't have to make like a huge ship. Entries may be built in any style anyway. We encourage detail and creativity. Okay, now you're speaking my language. I'm gonna make literally the most detailed thing I've ever made. Look, I'm ready. I'm ready. First place gets the equivalent of 10 bucks. Who cares? I'm ready. I'm ready. At first, I was worried about what the heck I would do for a boat, but then I realized I already had an idea. Buried deep in my Roblox experience files, I have this file here, TRPMH, which stands for the Riverside Poet Model House. And it was a project for a showcase that I wanted to release at some point, and this is it. And as you can see, it is a boat. And as you can also see, it is very, very old. This boat was inspired by the houseboat in Red Dead Redemption 2. When I first saw it, I thought it was so pretty and I wanted to build it in Roblox. And 6 years ago, during the height of lockdown in 2020, I first begun that project. And from the outside, it looks pretty much complete, but I got pretty overwhelmed with what I wanted to do for the inside. It was a very complicated build. Essentially, I bit off a lot more than I could chew with this build, and eventually got too overwhelmed to enjoy it, and I moved on to something else. However, 6 years later and with a lot more experience under my belt, I totally think that I can do this and I might even be able to make it even better. And so I'm going to show you the full time lapse from the very beginning up to the very end, all with commentary so you can learn about my thought process to show you how exactly I made the boat for this build. And boy, let me tell you, this has got to be one of the best builds I have ever made. Let's get into it. So the first thing that I made was the foundation of the boat. I say made, I used the old one from the boat that I made ages and ages and ages ago. It's the only thing I used from the old build. It saved a lot of time and it's really not substantial in regards to the rest of the build. And right here I am doing something called grey boxing, and it's essentially using basic parts to block out the building and give some proportions for things. And so it helps a bit with that blank canvas syndrome where you're looking at this completely empty world and you have no idea where to begin or what to do. Blocking things out like this really helps with that. And this is what the finished blocking out looks like. So I've got the top floor with some stairs going up to it and it's like half sheltered, and I've got the bottom floor there as well. And the idea right now is that this is going to be a shop, and so on the left side there you can see like storage and then like some additional decorations, and then over here is the counter, and then there's a balcony out here as well. So moving on to making the boat layout, I'm playing around with the colors there, and then I'm adding some depth to the wooden planks by adding like additional ones that are sticking out a bit more. Once that's complete, I also add some borders around the boat. These are like planks that would have been added in for stability. Here I am adding even more planks to the boat. They're different colors and textures which bring nice variety to the boat and make it feel less plain and samey, I guess. Next, and this is going to be a bit controversial, I'm adding screws onto the boat, and these screws each are probably about maybe 100 to 200 triangles, and I am adding them to the edges of every single plank of the boat. There are many developers right now who are screaming and going, what? That's so unoptimized. That's going to be so buggy. But the reason I'm doing this is because of detail. Realistically, a boat would have been boarded together with many screws like this. And while I could have done a normal map for all of these, this is what I had on me at the time. This is a very time-sensitive build, and so this is what I decided to go with. Here I am adding some grime to around the waterline of the boat, so where the sea and the air would meet. And then I add all of this seaweed, and this takes forever. This is the kind of algae and stuff that would be growing on the wood. This wood likes to hold a lot of moisture and bacteria, and so plants would definitely be growing in these areas. I alternate sizes between big, medium, and small, as you can see there, and then I work on mold. I wanted to add a moldy stain texture to the boat, and so what I did was change the wood texture to the same color as the boat, and then I recolor it to be slightly more green, and then I move it in like that, so it adds kind of like a blotchy effect. I don't really know if I like it in hindsight, but it was the best that I could do with the assets that I had. A lot of these assets were pre-made over the span of 5 years. I didn't really have a lot of time to make my own stuff exclusively for this build because, again, we only got 2 weeks. There definitely are things here that I did make for this boat specifically, and I'll let you know about them when we get to them. But yeah, the idea of these was that they were meant to be barnacles. I didn't have any barnacle assets, so I thought I'd be creative and get some pebbles and rocks to do it instead. And this is the finished waterline of the boat, and I think it looks very cool. Lots of variety. So here I'm adding a wooden plank border along the rim of the boat. You can see here I've played around with the rotation of them and also the height of them as well. I wanted to add variety to the position of the planks to show that this wasn't necessarily a professionally made boat. This was around the time that I had the idea of making a color palette of greens, browns, and whites. I thought that green would work really well with the browns, especially because of the waterline and all of the nature that I put there. And then I thought that if I added some white borders along the boat, it would look very aesthetic and cute and cozy and craftsman. So what I'm doing right here is adding some of these borders of some pre-made things that I have here. And then on to making the floor. And I struggled with this. I didn't show it, but I didn't know if I wanted to do individual planks or if I wanted to do something whole. In the end, I did something whole, and then I bordered the floor with planks like this. So that's what I'm doing here. And then on to making the stairs. I added this wooden tilt which would help with the direction of the stairs. I border it with these wooden planks and these beams just to add some variety, and then it's time to actually make the stairs. I saw this really cool reference on Pinterest of these stairs made of logs, and I wanted to make that. So I have these logs, these slabs of fresh natural wood, like untreated, and I gave them some rotation to give variety, and I thought that looks really cool. Bolted them down with some more of those screws, and that was complete. And then moving on to this area over here, which I wanted to make quite pretty and decorative, so I added some fishing nets. I thought they looked cool, and then I wanted to add some pretty plants to arrange the flowers in the pot. Once again, I had a reference on Pinterest for some plants that I really like, and so I'm using some existing nature assets that I have. And there's something really therapeutic about organizing these plants and figuring out what colors work together to make a really pretty, almost piece of still life, I think. And this is what it looks like finished. For those curious, a lot of these assets that I'm using are 3D scans of real life objects that I optimize in Blender. I have many videos all about this, but yeah, that's why a lot of these assets can seem quite realistic, but also can have some dodgy normal maps sometimes, is from where I've been baking them as quickly as possible because I have several thousands of them. So onto making this chair, which I used a reference on Pinterest for, one that I thought matched the colors of this build, and also I really liked the pattern on it. So I'm making that here. I'll leave you to judge if it is accurate or not, but yeah, I think it looks beautiful. So here I am making decorations to go under the chairs. So there's a lot of perfume related things that I use for decoration here, because the idea of the boat at the time was for it to be a perfume shop. This is an idea that I ended up not doing once I got to the interior because I found it a bit too small and cramped. But yeah, there's a few nods to that in here. I have had criticisms in the past that a lot of times my builds are overly detailed and that they feel very cluttered in places. However, my opinion on that is that I want my builds to feel lived in, and not only lived in, but but they've been lived in for a long time. I very often go to my grandparents' house, and they often have very cluttered houses that are full of old things that they can't let go of, family heirlooms and stuff, and I've always found that really comforting. I've always thought that it felt like safety to me, and so I really like to add things like that in my builds, that these people have homes that they're living in full of history and culture, and so yeah, that's something that I really love. So as you can see, I've been doing that white border surrounding the building again. This is going to continue to stay a continued theme of the build, so when I'm making the holes here for the windows, and then I add white borders along those as well, things like that. And now it's time to work on the outside wall of the houseboat. This is not in the original Red Dead Redemption 2 boat. This is completely from my head. I wanted to add some dark green shingles. I thought that that looked very homey, and also reminded me a lot of RVs and caravans in the UK. They have those shingles as well. And here I am making a cat bed for a cat. I thought it would be cool to have a cat on board of the boat. It makes sense because a lot of critters like mice live on boats, and a cat can help keep that in check. And also they're just a wonderful pet. So here I am making the food bowl for the cat. A lot of people are curious how I make my water look so watery, and it's very simple. You just use the glass texture and then you lower the transparency. And this is the cat. This is a free model. I'll clarify, that's a toolbox model. I don't think anything else here is so far, but that one is. Anyway, these are the stairs. So I make the beams for them, and then I make the steps for them next. And it's kind of difficult to get the stairs to perfectly be separate from each other. First, I use a stud increment to just get them down, and then I'll adjust them later. And I rotate the planks as well to add some texture variety. I add some boards here to look like they're actually attached to the wood. And then it's time to work on underneath the stairs. I imagined that this would have been used for storage, and so I added some apples. Spending a long time out at sea with no fruit or vegetables increases your chance of getting scurvy, and so I thought, these people, they're clever, they'll store some fruit so that they actually have a fighting chance. And then here I'm making something which I didn't have any reference for. This was just straight from my head. I wanted to make some kind of area for drying fish or smoking fish, and then they would hang here until they were ready to be cooked. And so I made the structure, and then I tied the strings, and then I attached the fish, and then I'm using a plugin called the curve tool to make these ropes, which I then recolor. I'm someone who does not like to use plugins. The curve tool and Archimedes are the only plugins that I ever really use for building on Roblox, and you'll see me using both of those all throughout this build. Because this was originally going to be a perfume shop full of porcelain white bottles, I wanted to add this continued motif of white, and so I have these exclusively white hydrangeas. These hydrangeas are from Quixel. I think it's called Fab now, which is a website to get 3D models, and then I played around with their color map to make the flowers white, because they were originally blue. I've got this white wisteria as well, which I border all along the outside of the boat. I love these. If anyone was in RoDevs the other day, you might have seen me playing around with the textures for those, because originally they were pink, and then I never made a flexi color version, and so I had to make one from scratch, which was a nightmare. And yeah, so this is the outside of the boat so far, and I think it looks really cool. So that's the completed front decking, like the entrance of the boat. And so now it's time to work on the top. I decided to work on the top of the boat before I worked on the interior. The interior would be the last thing that I did, because it was the part that I was looking forward to the most, and also the part I was scared of the most, because that's where I gave up in the first project. I want to add like a fence to go all the way around the top of the boat to stop anyone from falling, and I wanted to make it as pretty as possible. So I wanted to make it look like a wood carving or something for the posts, and adding this piece of wood on top to look like it was a completely raw bit of bark that was carved. I don't know what the idea was for this. I don't actually think it looks that good, but yeah, I made a bunch of them, made sure they were all evenly apart, and then it was time to work on the actual fence itself. So I added this bottom border, and I brought it up to the top to make the top part. For the inside, I wanted something with a bit of a curve, and then also some nice carving to it. So I work on the curve here using a mesh that was previously a part that I negated the cylinder into to make like this hollow thing, and then I transferred it to a mesh. And then I get these really cool little like flat decorations that I've had for absolutely ages to make, I guess, a wooden carving inside of the fence. I really wanted this boat to look artisan and cozy and beautiful and detailed, and so I thought that this worked really well for that. And also it had that floral motif that you see in other parts of the build as well. But yeah, that is the completed fencing around the top of the boat, and I think it looks very cool. Very proud of it, and if you're mean to it, I will cry. So I'm making a planter box here, and I did use a reference for this, and I think it's AI generated now I think about it, but I made it work. I have these absolutely beautiful metal decorations that I put on the box, and I thought they were really pretty. These were provided to me by a subscriber who gifted them to me a few weeks beforehand, and so a really big thank you to that subscriber. You have contributed to the building contest. Thank you very much for that. So then I have these really detailed pieces of terrain, and they're from the toolbox. You can find them if you look up PBR nature. This grass is not from the toolbox though. Neither is that bamboo or pretty much anything in the planter actually. And then I wanted to make a nice little seating area, and so I have these absolutely beautiful 3D scanned ancient chairs made from woven straw, which I absolutely love, and I also have this woven wooden table as well, which was a 3D scan. And then I decided to decorate it with some really pretty swirly glasses from Blender and this 3D scanned sushi dish with some chopsticks as well. The idea was that the people that lived on this boat would be eating a lot of fish because they get it straight from the ocean, and a great way to preserve fish is in the form of sushi because the rice soaks up the rotten flavors of that fish. So that was the idea of that. I had some sneaky little alcohol there, don't tell Roblox. And then I have these beautiful 3D scanned plates which I got specifically from the Hunt Museum in Ireland, and they have wonderful little zebra paintings on them which I think are so cool. And so yeah, that is the finished seating area. I think it looks really artisan and I love it so much. And so now I'm working on a fireplace. I border it with this wood I made from parts and wedges. I add a fireplace on top, and then I make these poles that go over the top, and I use both a mixture of parts and a 3D scanned metal object there as well. And then I make something that'll keep the fire safe, but also you can put things on it, and I used Archimedes there to make that curve. So yeah, that's that fireplace. And now onto the covered area of the boat. I have these beautiful wooden beams that have like these painted pattern textures on them, which I absolutely love, and I covered them all in like this old super grimy fabric. And then I'm using the curve tool again to add these string ropes along the top, and the idea of this was that it was for hanging things on and also to keep the fabric on top in place as well. And then it's time to make an outdoors bed. This was in the original reference, and also I really liked the idea of someone sleeping out in the nature listening to the waves. I had no real reference for the hammock, so I had to do this all just out of my head. So I make these knots and then I tie them to the wood here using these long cylinders as ropes, and they were a nightmare to rotate and get perfectly aligned, but we got there in the end. And once one side was done, it was very easy to just copy and paste over to the other. I very well could have made a actual hammock shape, but this is a Roblox accessory. It's a cape. I was looking at it and I thought this could totally work for the hammock and save me half an hour, so I used that instead. Put a blanket on top and then added some things underneath the hammock as well, things that you would normally store near or under your bed, such as bed sheets. And this is the build so far. So the outside, and then you go up the stairs, and this is what the top looks like. I think it looks really cool. There's a lot of stuff that I skipped time, but yeah, I love it. I'm so happy. And so now it's time to work on the inside. I forgot to record, but I ended up adding this white wall to the inside and then this wooden skirting under the bottom. And then I make these windows. And this is probably the laggiest part of the build, to be honest. I could have done it in Blender to make it less laggy, but at this point of the build, we only had a few days left of the contest and I was really stressed. So I just made the whole thing in Roblox Roblox Studio out of existing things that I already had. And now I'm working on kind of like a scullery area. This would be a bathroom in any other house, but because this one's on the ocean, there's not really much point of a bathroom. So this is just like a sink for washing up. This is a very 1800s style sink where there's no plumbing. It is just a bowl, and then you have to go out and fetch your own water and put it in and add your soap. So yeah, very Dark Ages stuff. Aren't we lucky we have plumbing on boats now? And then I have this beautiful painting, which you might have seen me make in a previous video. So I add that there as well. And then here I'm making something that was randomly shown to me on Pinterest one day, and I thought that is so cool. This hanging fine china plant thing. It's probably AI generated, but again, it looks so cool, and so I wanted to make that. So I'm arranging all of the teacups here, and then I'm adding the ropes to them and tying them to the top, and then I'm making the nature that goes inside them. A lot of people ask how or where I get the nature from, and the answer is pretty much everywhere. There are some that I've made, there are some that I've gotten from Quixel, there are some that have been given to me by subscribers and friends. And the problem is that my collection of nature assets is ever changing. Been working on it for years and years and years, and so it's really hard for a lot of the older stuff to tell you which came from where. So now I'm working on a desk area, because in the original build that I made for this, I had the idea that this was a poet, which is why the file name was the Riverside Poet, and they loved writing and poetry, and this is where they would have written, and so I'm making a desk for them to write. I'm making this top dresser area, I suppose. It's like wall storage. I use Archimedes there once again to rotate some things. Here I am adding these nice little decorative parts to the end, and so that's that completed storage. You might have noticed I haven't actually put any 3D scan decorations in yet. I wanted to focus just on making the furniture first and then decorating it all much later. So yeah, that's that side complete, and that's all unfurnished. It's just the furniture. So here I'm making an indoor bed in case any guests come round, or if the owner decides they want to sleep indoors. So I'm making a very cozy bed, and I used a reference on Pinterest for this as well. I wanted it to be very wooden and handcrafted looking, and so I've got these cylinders, and then I had these spheres which were in the reference. I also have these really cool decorations that were given to me by a subscriber to add more depth to the wood, to make it look like there's some cool carvings in there. Onto the mattress, which is just a rounded cube that was converted into a mesh so that I could scale it around. I had this fabric with this beautiful texture which I've had for years and years. I think I found it on a website that makes textures that are seamless, so you can repeat them over and over again. And then I'm working on a painting, so you saw me making the wooden border of that. And then I went on the internet to find some really beautiful beach paintings. I found this one, and to get the texture I put it on top of a part that has a fabric texture on it, and then I turned the transparency up so you could see that canvas texture going through. And now I'm working on making the kitchen. I found this reference on Pinterest of an oven, which I'm trying my very hardest to make it. I've only ever made an oven once before, and it went okay. So here I am making another one and hoping that it goes okay. Could have made it in Blender, but again, I was really panicking for time. I didn't want to make any mistakes. I'm a lot more confident with part building than 3D modeling. But yeah, that's what it looks like when it's complete. So now we have these empty shelves, and I thought I'd show you exactly my thought process for what I choose to decorate these shelves with. I had a reference for it, but I also wanted to add my own twist to it as well with the limited assets that I had. So I have these books, their toolbox. I have this necklace, and then I added these boxes that would store hats. I wanted to put clothing related things on the top of the shelves. So I have a mask, there's a hat, and then some additional boxes for jewelry as well. And because this was originally going to be a perfume shop and then I completely changed my mind on it later, I thought as a nod to that, I would add a bunch of my 3D scanned perfume assets. So these are all porcelain. I love them. They're some of my favorite 3D scans. Added some horseshoes on the top, and now it's time to show you the completed build. I really hope that you like the completed build in the realistic lighting. Not long after my boat was complete, it was time to gather all of the builds up and show them all off. So I gathered my friends and we all went to take a look at the rest of the boats together. Here is our initial reaction. Oh my goodness, all of the boats. Oh, hello. Oh yeah, you can sleep in the bed.
Your entire horse body disappeared.
They've given my wood the old Roblox textures instead of the modern ones. That's a little bit weird.
Huh.
Should have accounted for our bias on Roblox's ancient, outdated, less detailed materials. Ooh,
Thalassophobia.
Thalassophobia. Oh, I'm too tall for this. I'm stuck upstairs. Oh, look at these little teeny weeny little itsy bitsy boats. This is cute. The pretty wood. There's no normal map. Is there a normal map? There's no normal map. Oh, this is beautiful. It's like a warship. I think Wes would love this because he's on a warship.
I already looked at it. Yeah, I already saw it.
Oh, you looked at it? Did you like it?
I mean, it's not the type of ship I'm on, but it is very, very nice.
Fair,
pretty
fair.
detailed.
Oh, look at the galleon over there.
They put people on this one. That's pretty cool. I like this one. Why is this one so tiny?
It's very tiny. So this is the day after the initial reaction to all the builds, and I thought I should go through each of the builds and give my honest thoughts and opinions about them all. I think it's really refreshing to look at other people's work and think about their thought process and how they did what they did and what you think about it, all while being very respectful, of course. That being said, there is one big thing that I do want to talk about real quick, which is the textures that the hub is built on. Why are we using legacy textures? I swear it has been over 4 years since Roblox revamped the textures to have an improved look, better normal maps, and better building potential. They're on by default, which means that the people that built this hub made the executive decision to revert them to the old, outdated textures. I really do want to do a video at some point about my criticisms of the textures, but yeah, I hate that they did that because the bolts and stuff no longer align on the wooden planks, which I spent absolutely ages lining up. And the normal maps on them are just not as good, whatever. The other thing that I am also quite bothered about is that for some reason they've decided to use the classic Roblox lighting, which means that the metal, like this, doesn't look metallic at all. It's especially noticeable on this boat here, where in their screenshots that they made, the specular of the metal is so much more realistic and it reflects all of the ambient colors of the environment. This one just reflects the white light from the sun. It looks so flat. This metal would have looked absolutely beautiful if environmental specular was turned up, but it wasn't, and I really feel like it's just made the build a lot flatter than it really is. And that's such a big shame, it's the little things. But other than that, this is a great build. I'm pretty sure they made this in just a day, so I'm not going to shade on anything else. This is amazing for just being done in a day. Really well done. So on to looking at the boats, and I'm going to start with mine because it's the closest to spawn, and I am so proud of this build. I really am happy with how it turned out, despite the textures. What I ended up making, I feel, was so much better than what I envisioned, and I'm really, really happy and proud of myself that I was able to do this. And despite the criticisms that others have given of it being very laggy, I'm very proud of the fact that I made something that was very, very detailed, just like we were instructed to do. And everything tells a story. Sushi made from the fish that were caught on this boat. Someone who enjoys sleeping outside, listening to the waves. You can see where they kneel every dawn and dusk to pray. The pet that they have sleeping in the cat bed. You can even find another one over here. They enjoy music, they enjoy writing, they enjoy art, they enjoy plants. So much story is being told here, and I'm really, really happy with it. Obviously, the performance is a very obvious criticism, but one that no one else has mentioned, that I'll mention myself, is the color palette. The main color palette for this build is brown, green, and white, and I feel that all of the brown shades work well together, all of the green shades work well together, and all of the white shades work well together, but all three together, brown, green, and white, I don't know, I feel like it conflicts sometimes. I think that's my main criticism of my build, is the color balance is a little bit off in some places. The kitchen, particularly like the dining table and the oven, also bother me as well. I don't know what it is. I feel like the colors of the stove are just wrong. I also really don't like this carpet. I feel like it doesn't really fit with the floor very well. It stands out a lot more than it should. Another thing is the period. When you look at the boat from this view, it feels feels like it's a late 1800s to early 1900s build, but then you come inside and it has electricity in the boat, which is something that wouldn't have really been a thing until a bit later. I definitely focused on a more aesthetic look than a period accurate look, so that's another big criticism of mine as well. Moving on to this boat, and I feel so bad for this one because no one has voted for it so far. I really hope someone does, because it is lovely. It's got a lovely modern layout. I especially respect the rails. This must have taken absolutely ages. You can clearly see that they looked at a reference for building this boat and they've managed to portray it perfectly. Oh, I didn't realize you could go in here. Look at this. Look at this cute art. And you can see that the picture frame was made with wedges. They put detail and effort into that. I will be a bit of a wood grain police and say that the wood should be going the opposite direction. But yeah, I love all the small details. It looks like they made this entire boat with parts as well. It looks like even the shape of the ship was made with parts. That is insane. I also made the shape of the boat in Roblox Studio, and their ship's shape is so much better than mine. Huge respect. I feel like they could have looked at more references for the kinds of things that go on the boat deck itself. It's very normal for builders when they don't really know what to put somewhere, when there's a really empty open space and they want to fill it with something. Crates and barrels are like the #1 thing people go to, but there are totally other things you could put here as well. But yeah, a lovely build. I really like it, especially because it was made with parts. We have this one, and I might be biased towards this one because it was made during the same kind of period as mine, and also it has the same color scheme with browns, greens, and whites. I think that this skirting here with the wood nailed together is so cool. You can see where it's been used to make the staircase that goes over the wheel here. That's awesome. It's such good attention to detail, and I wonder if they used a reference for it or if it came from their head. I also really respect that this was a builder that used nails on the planks as well. They're not on all of the planks, but they are on many, and that's very cool. Oh, I love these shutters with the uneven shingles. That's so cool. And then inside, this is my favorite thing right here. I love this stove that looks like it was made completely out of parts. This little zeophyting bit here bothers me, but that's because I'm a nitpicking loser. But yeah, I love the design of this, and I absolutely would have done this for my boat if I had found a reference. And look, more crates and barrels to fill up empty space. And you can see they also have an area where they're writing. I wonder if we had similar references. And then on the top, this is another part that's a big favorite of mine, is this constellation ceiling. The paintings as well, the world building paintings and stuff. It's so nice. This is such a pleasantly detailed build, and it also has world building. It's got the telescope and the compass so that this sailor can use the constellations to tell where he is. Isn't this just awesome? I absolutely love this boat. On to Vupatu's boat. This boat was made in the stud style, which I have mixed opinions on, but for what it is, I really appreciate it. Look at the disco. And for all the opinions that I have on the stud style, one thing that I do respect is that it is very difficult to keep an advanced boat build like this symmetrical when building with studs. You know, that must have taken a lot of calculation. One thing I will say, and I guess this is just a byproduct of the style, this is scaled to the R6 avatar, which is significantly shorter and wider than mine, which means that there are many places of the boat that are completely inaccessible to my avatar. The areas that I have seen though are very cool. I mean, look at this. Look at the ceiling, the cluttered bookshelf, the Robux bag. I wonder what this is doing here. It doesn't really feel like something you'd have in a lounge. Yeah, it's a really cool boat. It's creative to use the stud style, but I will say I don't know about detail. I feel like it is difficult to get detail in a stud build, especially when you have such a small space to build with. So they made it work, and I respect that. And it's got a hot tub, which means bonus points. On to Fever, Mr. Controversial, whose boat has appropriately been destroyed. I didn't do this. I think they forgot to anchor it, and so it has fallen apart. From what I've seen, Fever only spent a few hours on their build, so for 3 hours of work, this is obviously really nice. I love wooden structures in building, and one bit of detail that I like about this is that he's chosen to make the boat itself a little bit green from the seaweed and stuff, and then the top part of the boat, which doesn't touch the sea, has been made not seaweedy. You know, it's attention to detail like that that I really appreciate. The biggest and most obvious criticism, of course, is that there isn't really much here. This is a very last minute build. They flexed earlier that their boat was only 4,000 triangles. Considering this was a build competition where you had to make something detailed, 4,000 triangles is not the flex you think it is. I'm sorry. Anyway, moving on to this boat. And this boat is very cool. I've seen the pictures of it in RAR. It is a boat made from, I think, a whale skeleton, which is very cool. It's like a ghost ship. And the very obvious thing about this is that it is definitely the most creative concept. I mean, come on. It's a boat that's half skeleton. That's really cool. The shape of it and the silhouette of this boat is really cool. That being said, I do have criticisms for this boat that I want to give as respectfully as possible. First off, the skeleton itself is really, really cool. Love the shape. You can see they did look at references to make this. I really respect that. But what is happening with these textures? What's going on here? Another thing, like the meshes of this build are a little bit weird in places, such as triangles missing in this anchor. There are some strange like lighting deformations on the sails here. And if you look up to this one here, like this is very odd. It feels like this was once a higher poly model that was remeshed very quickly. Like certain things about the detail as well have put me off in some places, like how you have these ropes and then they go down to this area and then the ropes just kind of merge into nothing in this wood here. Like there would definitely be some kind of hole and you could communicate that by adding like a metal circle or something here. It's a really creative concept, but it has come at the cost of detail. We also have some wood grain problems here too, but you know, I don't want to nitpick too much on this, especially because when it comes to creativity, this is 100% better than mine. Onto this one, Black Lagoon, and this is so cool. It is a warship. There is a way to go inside, but I cannot for the life of me figure out how to go in. I know that the inside is fully furnished, but I just cannot find the way in. And this is definitely another one of those builds that the lighting is really pooped on. This metal texture would look so much cooler if they had used Roblox's more modern lighting. Not this build's fault though. It was my boyfriend's favorite when he came and took a look at all of the I found the way in! No, I'm too tall. This is not fair. So yeah, another build that has used the R6 scaling. I really wish people could accommodate for different sizes of avatars coming in. You know, it's not 2009 anymore, guys. Yeah, like I was saying, my boyfriend really loves this build. It's really cool, really accurate. And despite being very low poly, which I'm personally not a fan of, the actual detail being conveyed is really good. I think my main criticism for this is how literally everything you see on this boat was made with Blender. In my opinion, it's not really a Roblox building if you didn't build a significant part of it in Roblox Studio itself. You know, in my opinion, Roblox building is using parts and bricks and then meshes to also assist with that when making more advanced shapes. When you make the whole thing in Blender, this doesn't feel like a building contest anymore. It feels like a modeling contest and then we're just using Roblox Studio to show off the model. You know what I mean? Like, as lovely as this build is, it just doesn't feel like a Roblox building for a Roblox build contest. But you know, that is my personal opinion, and that doesn't mean that it doesn't deserve to be here. It's really well made. Heck, I'm terrible at this kind of style, so you know, it still takes a lot of skill to do. Onto this build, the Artisan, which is a lovely name. And this build is so cool. Look at the design of this. I love the shape of this boat. It feels very distinguished, how it's long and thin. I like that it's elegant, you know, it's not trying to blow you away with everything at you at once, like mine is. You know, it's easy to enjoy, it's easy to appreciate. The one big thing that I think everyone has pointed out to death, but I'm gonna have to do it as well, is the size. What on earth is this? It feels a lot like they built the boat without realizing there was a size limit and then had to kind of go, oh no, and size it down later. I don't know if that was intentional or not. Obviously the boat can be as small as you want, as long as it stays within the allocated space that we were given. It is a shame that we can't go inside of the buildings and check out the insides of them and stuff, but I also understand that 2 weeks is really not that long to make something of this level. I really struggled with our deadline to the point where I had to sacrifice releasing a video that week to do it. So I completely respect this build and what it is. Look at the cool little details like this. And then finally we have this monster of a build over here which everyone is projecting to win, and it is not surprising why. It looks like it was made completely with parts, which is astonishing. I mean, look at the shape of this boat. Can you believe that this was potentially made with parts? Was this made with parts? It looks like it was. Look at that, isn't that awesome? So creative. I love how they've actually modeled the sailors working on the ship, all in poses that look like they were frozen in time. Things that real sailors probably would have done on a ship during this time. Look at this guy, look at his beard. Isn't that cool? Can you go inside? No, I forgive you because, I mean, you made literally all of this. If I absolutely had to have some kind of criticism for this, which I really don't want to, but if I absolutely had to, my criticism would probably be the colors. There are certain shades of brown that feel a little bit out of place. For example, you have all of these reds here and they look nice, but then you also have these yellowish ones and then these tan ones and these greenish ones over here. And that's a lot of variety for one shade of color that kind of makes the palette feel like a bit of a mess. What I imagine that they've done, and this is probably part of their style, is that they haven't messed around with the color picker at all. It looks like they've only used colors from Roblox's default hexagonal color picker, probably because they wanted to keep it retro. So whether this is stylistic or not, I don't know. I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt, but I will say that objectively, I feel like certain shades, especially this crate here, which is such a different color to everything else, it doesn't feel harmonious with the build. Another thing, and this is really nitpicky, the reason I choose not to make my builds with 100% parts is because of things like this, where you get seams a lot in things, particularly on the boat's edge. Like here you can see there's seams here too, seams here, and this is of course a byproduct of making everything out of parts. These are preventable if you adjust the pivot point of parts and rotate along them. However, this is very confusing for a lot of people and often takes a lot of math and calculation as well to make sure that it all connects in the end, something that I imagine not many builders actually enjoy. And one huge thing that I've got to respect is that despite this build being pretty much nothing but Roblox's parts, I have not seen a single instance of Z-fighting. Even in areas where the textures are different here, you can see they've purposefully lowered the part a little bit to prevent that. And so yeah, that is all of the thoughts I have for the boats. I did vote in the contest. Out of all of these ships you see here, which do you think got my vote? And I bet it will surprise you. Or if you know me well, this might not surprise you at all. The boat that ended up getting my vote was this one. This is just the one that I liked the most and connected to me the most. I liked the detail it had, especially this part here. I loved the color palette. I felt that it was all very harmonious. I loved the idea that this was a humble little steamboat that someone was very obviously living in. I loved the story that it told and the message that it sent about a peaceful sailor living his life under the stars. This one just ticked all of the boxes for me, and so even though it was quite small and to many people seems very simple and overshadowed by monoliths of ships over here, this was the one that I loved the most, and so I made sure to give the builder lots of support. So now that we've looked at the boats and everyone has voted, it is time to reveal the winner. And the winner is... I don't know. I left the community a day or two before the results were announced. Last I checked, I was in a tie for first place with that galleon with all of the sailors on it. I am currently drawing first place.
Hey, look at you.
Wow!
I'm so proud of you.
But after looking at those results, I went to sleep and woke up the next morning, and an incident had happened which had pushed me over the edge of what I could handle. You see, the relationship between me and that community had been strained for a while. The whole reason I wanted to participate in this competition was to try and improve my relations with that group. I'd be able to interact with the community, prove my worth as a builder, and potentially promote the community on my channel. But things happened, and that unfortunately never came to be, and I suppose I should probably start from the beginning. So this community I had heard of from a subscriber, and it was a community specifically for people that make showcases, which are very detailed builds. And it had pretty much all of the showcase artists that I looked up to. Aerophagia, who made Flower Garden in the Clouds, Ace of Hearts, who made Christmas Dinner, which inspired my own showcase, and many more. But when I joined the community, I noticed that my welcome wasn't exactly warm. In fact, many of the builders that I interacted with in there felt a little uncomfortable and dry, as if trying to end the conversation as quickly as possible. And a big reason for this was because of some things that people had said about me without me realizing. There were a lot of rumors that had been allowed to float around about me, some very unsavory things, such as this. They're talking about me here. She's so weird, by the way. Wait, what? Why? Her arguments make no sense. She's narcissistic. She doesn't know her own level at all. She keeps saying that she makes hyper-realistic stuff. She's definitely not humble. She made a video dissing the people who told her to move to Unreal. I did not make a video dissing people who told me to move to Unreal. I made a video about the people that told me that I shouldn't be on Roblox and that I should move to Unreal. I showed their comments and I respectfully said why I disagreed with them. I didn't diss them, but whatever. The way she looks is questionable. She's kind of weird, honestly. I posted my drawings and she immediately posted hers. God forbid I'm excited to show my art to a fellow artist. What? So many of these messages came from this person here called Fever. And if you've been on my channel for a while, you might recognize the name. You might have noticed I also addressed them as Mr. Controversial earlier in this video. On to Fever, Mr. Controversial, whose boat has appropriately been destroyed. This person was in a previous video of mine. I made a YouTube video talking about, it was primarily focused on toolbox hate, but it also spent a significant part of it talking about the toxicity of development Discord servers. And I showed screenshots of examples of the toxicity I was referring to, and one of them featured Fever saying some particularly unkind things to another developer's model. Unsurprisingly, he wasn't very pleased about being called out in a video by someone he doesn't really know. For some reason, it comes as a shock to many when the things you post in a public space for everyone to see and judge gets judged. But yeah, a video that I made to encourage developers who were victims of bullying and shaming, in Fever's eyes, was a personal attack or something. He continues to argue that the toxicity was justified because it was directed to people who had also been toxic, completely oblivious to the fact that that is exactly how toxicity spreads. I don't want to dwell on this too much, but I do think it's worth pointing out that in many people's perfect world, including Fever's, being toxic to people who deserve it is acceptable. This attitude doesn't work in the real world though, because it encourages this attitude that those who have wronged you shouldn't be respected or understood. It continues this cycle of being unkind and putting people off of their passions, to the point where if you go out of your way to shun this behavior and uplift and encourage new developers, it gets turned into motivation to make your life in a community as difficult as possible. And that is exactly what happened, as you can see here. I rather naively assumed that if I spent enough time in the community being kind, uplifting, and engaging, they would eventually see through the lies and they would treat me as one of them. This did not happen. It felt that every corner I turned was met with drama, passive aggression, gossip, and nepotism. For example, in this community, it becomes a lot more easy to send media, such as showing pictures of your work, when you've been ranked, which requires you to send over a build for the community to judge, and then they decide your skill level. I did this and was given the skill level of the low mid-range. Essentially, they have 4 levels of skill, with level 1 being the beginner level and level 4 being a master at building. I was given level 2. And this rank was heavily criticised by Fever's friend group, who said that I didn't deserve it, because many of the models that I used weren't made by scratch and were instead 3D scans of real-life objects that I optimised in Blender, which is true. The staff were rather confused why they cared so much, firstly because none of them had ever spoken to me before, but also because no one has ever protested a rank in this community before. So then why do you think they cared so much? I promise it's not because of my building ability. It's simply because they didn't want to see me succeed. Because that's what pettiness does. When you feel wronged by someone, you don't want to see them do well. You don't want to see them recognized for the good that they do. Even though I spent over 1,700 hours, that's 72 days worth of hours making these assets over the span of multiple years, using a process that none of them had any idea how to do, they still insisted that my development level was only equal to a beginner, if that. I of course calmly explained exactly how my work was in fact my work, and despite I myself being respectful and kind during this interaction, the friend group got into a pretty heated argument with other members. They were told multiple times to stop by the staff, which they didn't do, and the staff didn't bother to moderate, they just let it continue. And the whole time I'm practically begging people to ask me questions so I can help them understand how my work is made. It's not fair for people to judge my building ability when they don't even know what skill is involved in in the process that I used to build, but literally none of them were interested. In fact, they went as far as to say that they didn't want to be alone with me. They didn't want to privately talk to me. For some reason, I made them uncomfortable. It's just that pettiness again. You want to believe what you want to believe, and so you'll refuse to entertain any evidence that proves otherwise. Once you've made that decision that the YouTuber's not as skilled as her subscribers think she is, you're not interested in hearing the counter-arguments or bothering to learn anything about the time and effort that goes into my work. The whole thing was very petty, and it left me very hurt, especially that the staff seemed to have no interest in trying to resolve this. It is against the rules to start drama. It is against the rules to continue when the staff tell you to stop, and yet they did that and nothing happened. It hurt especially that it felt like a personal attack. That this had never happened before in the community, that the only reason this had happened with me is because I committed the crime of holding someone accountable for their actions. And because of this, I decided to raise a ticket. I decided to report their behavior. I mentioned that it was incredibly hurtful what these people were doing and saying. I raised the name calling and the insulting of my appearance and other things that had happened. I said that it was draining my relationship with the community, and I was assured that they would investigate. And I waited. And I waited and I waited for days and days, weeks and weeks. Over a month had gone by with no update, and then my ticket was just deleted. If something did happen, they never bothered to explain it to me. I still felt that passive aggression and dryness when talking to people, which led me to believe that whatever did happen didn't do enough, and it was just really disappointing. It was really sad. And in hindsight, this was the point where I should have left. So far, I had experienced gatekeeping, dismissiveness, elitism, and bullying. They have a narrow definition of what counts as being a real, skilled 3D artist or developer. They are discounting the expertise that I've developed without understanding my process. They refuse to learn about my workflow despite being invited to, choosing not to engage with evidence that might challenge their opinion. They place a higher status on one production method over another. And finally, they go out of their way to make fun of my appearance, personality, and character. Then left me in the dark when I reported it, presumably in the hopes that it would all just go away and be forgotten. But despite all of that, I still wanted to believe that they were just misinformed about me, that I could prove to them that I am a good community member, that I was just given the wrong first impression. The building contest was announced the same time as all of this, and shortly after we were given instructions to make something as creative and as detailed as possible. I thought this was my chance. I'm great at doing detailed builds. Finally, I can prove my worth and show that even though my production method is different to theirs, the final outcome is just as great. And I put my heart and soul into that build. I spent all of my free time, every day of every week, working on that boat. I only recorded about half of the building process, and that footage added up to 20 hours, which means I spent upwards of 40 hours working on this. I wanted to dedicate all of my time to this, and so I even cancelled my weekly video schedule just so I could focus all of my time on this. On the last few days of the contest, I was so tired and stressed, and I may or may not have had a couple breakdowns to my boyfriend. It was really stressful because it felt like my values were being challenged. I had to choose between using my time to make a video for the subscribers who love me, or using that time to work on a build contest for a community who see me as unskilled. It was the first time I had ever questioned myself. Am I building this boat for the joy of creating or for the fear of not fitting in? And I want to give a huge shout out to my boyfriend Melted during this time for his infinite patience. He was watching this slowly chip at my mental health and was saying over and over again, "You should leave. These people don't care about you. Screw them." And I kept saying, no, I'm finishing what I started. I am not a quitter. And once again, he was right, and I should have listened to him. But miraculously, I did manage to finish the boat with only, I think, a day or two left. It was creative and it was very detailed, just like the contest had instructed. And despite some passive aggression from the host, my build was approved for the contest. And that's when the gossiping really started up. When all of the boats were gathered and put into that hub for everyone to look at, the gossiping was very tough to deal with. Literally, as soon as I joined the server, the first thing I saw in in chat was this friend group gossiping about the boat's performance. Oh, she's here. It's Fever. Instantly pissed off that I'm here. Who saw that coming? 5 million triangles. Are you serious, dude?
Oh, I hate when people make the fucking triangles comment, dude.
I'm gonna have a word to say about that.
Oh, thanks, Fives. You don't have to do that. My frames dropped so
you can
hard.
leave now, Fives.
I know, dude. Fever's so rude. Even the owner of the community confirmed that they were making fun of the triangle count and giving criticism that wasn't respectful or constructive. I just find it so weird that we're told to make something creative and detailed, and mine is objectively the most detailed one there, and they're trying to use that to say that my work isn't good. You know, I'm not saying mine is the best there, it's definitely not, but it's so frustrating that I do exactly as I'm told, and even then they're still finding ways to make me bad for it. There was another gossiping point about me and my work as well, which was going around, and this one was even more annoying. I edited a lot of it out, but I didn't actually spend that much time looking at all of the other boats. Instead, I was doing this, typing. Because throughout the whole evening, I was facing allegations that I was rigging the votes. People who knew nothing about me, people who I had never spoken to, were trying to paint the picture that I was using my status as a YouTuber to move the voting in my favor. As if I care if I win the competition or not. What do I get from it? 1,000 Robux, wow. And they don't care either. They don't care about who wins, they don't care if they don't win or whoever does. They just want to find any way they can to look down on me. Constantly, I was reassuring everyone that I didn't tell any of my subscribers about this community or the competition. The builder is great, however, you should avoid advertising RAR. I didn't advertise RAR. These are just my friends that joined because we're in a call. I never even mentioned the build contest. And constantly, for some reason, they still chose to ignore me and continue to spread this idea that I was rigging the votes. It came to the point where they were trying to insinuate that the friends who had tagged along with me to just take a look at these votes and be in the video were going to join the community and rig the votes in my favor. To try and stoke the flames, I asked them to leave.
Can somebody send me a link to the fucking bullshit?
Please don't get involved, Wes. They're raising an argument that I've got all these people backing up on me, and it's not looking good if I get people.
You don't have all these people. Holly, listen, you don't have all these people. You're listening to a fucking first off. It's me and Fives. I'm not gonna vote, and Fives wants to be a part of the community.
You clarify to them that you're not voting. It's like I walk on eggshells with this group. They presume I'm out to get them for everything, and
Frankly, I think you should fucking leave it. These people are stupid. They are toxic. You don't need to be a part of it. It's Hidden Devs Part 2. These people are not good. Every single day, it just proved it more and more. I'm gonna go make a pizza. I'm pissed off now.
Okay. Goodbye.
I love you.
Me too.
And these people, by the way, they are just as bad as every other developer community.
Once again, I got the lecture about how I should leave the community, and I still kept insisting that it was okay. And then finally, an incident happened that pushed me over the edge and caused me to leave for good. A couple days later, I woke up and I did a routine check of all of my showcases chat logs. I have chat logs webhooked to my Discord server because my games have had a history of attracting role players that like to do things that are not allowed on Roblox. And as we all know, Roblox is terrible at moderating this, and so I have to do it myself. But when I opened the chat logs that morning, I found messages from a staff member in that community with their friend gossiping about the showcase, making fun of certain design choices in a way that was disrespectful and unconstructive. Why do these wind chimes sound so dissonant? Lol 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 lol, let me hear. Oh my god, you're right. Lol 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 lol. Jingle jangle ah. A point of controversy is the high amount of outside assets and 3D scans used. OMG, they didn't even make these assets themselves? A lot of them, no. I had explained to this staff member previously how I did make these, how these aren't just from the toolbox or from someone else. There is a creative process that goes into digitizing real-life objects and optimizing them, and it was ignored and used as a gossiping point. If they didn't even make the assets, what even is there? Lol 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 lol, I know, right? Lord knows about the font, Beowulf-ass text. They're making fun of the font that I'm using. She used this asset twice. What weird logic is this? What do you mean you're not meant to repeat an asset? God forbid. What? Is it bad that this backside is my favorite part of the entire place? You're not wrong at all. Lol 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 lol. Why does this garden look so lumpy? Ugh, it just feels like an untended garden in some rural country. Here they are saying my sculpture assets look like they were put into a drainage ditch. Just kidding, not. Look, this to many does not feel very significant, but there are multiple things that you need to keep in mind about this. Firstly, all of my showcases are interpretations of severe trauma that I went through as a teenager. They are a way for me to turn the worst experiences in my life into something positive and productive. Because of this, it is very purposeful that they have this beautiful, detailed first impression, but when you look closer, you can see that undertone of deep sadness intended to only be noticeable after an amount of time. That off-putting feeling you get when you play my games is an important part of my games. Renave in particular, which is the game that they were playing, was made immediately after a difficult breakup. It tells the story of a woman who died and her beautiful garden falling into complete disrepair as the new owners of the garden stopped caring about maintaining it. Renave tells the story of how I lost a part of myself in immense grief, to the point where I didn't want to live anymore. It tells a story about how something happy was completely ruined and abandoned, how it's changed forever, never to be what it once was again. It was a deeply traumatic event for me, to the point where I could only ever explain how I felt through creating a world to represent it. A world that the other day was ridiculed for the entertainment of a staff member who I've never had any issues with. Once again, I've had people gossip about me and my work in this community, and this one was especially hurtful. I ended up explaining all of this to the owner of the community, who insisted that even though it was a staff member saying these unkind things, it doesn't represent the staff member as a staff member. It was particularly shocking to see them defend their staff members' behavior by trying to suggest that I was stalking them and being creepy as fuck for having chat logs intended to keep children safe from inappropriate behavior that happens in all games. Behavior that never would be moderated by Roblox. Behavior that ruins the developing brains of the children it's exposed to. The staff of this community are held to the standard that they must give criticism that is respectful and constructive. They moderate people that don't do this. But when I point out that it is hypocritical for them to then give disrespectful, unconstructive insults to their community members' work, I'm the one who's the problem simply for finding out. Essentially, they rejected the idea that the staff members' behavior badly reflects on the staff team, even though their staff actively condemn others for giving unconstructive criticism and even punish people for doing so. Not to mention that this staff member wouldn't be doing this in the first place if I wasn't in their community. Time and time again, I'm seeing proof that all of this is provoked. Proof that every step I seem to take in this community leads to hurt, and then constantly being gaslit into thinking that I'm crazy, that I'm manipulative and twisting their words and taking it way too seriously. And so I finally admitted that I am above this treatment, that respecting yourself and choosing to step away from a hurtful environment does not make you a quitter. It makes you strong. So what about the competition? Well, I'm not really interested in the results. Winning was never something I was interested in. I know that whoever does win absolutely deserves it, and I'm happy for them, but I want no part in this. I know that the gossiping is still continuing. I have had confirmation that people are actively spreading the rumor that I left the server because I was disqualified for rigging the votes, when in reality, I was disqualified simply because I left. I never rigged the votes. I don't care. But because of all of this overwhelming negativity and the stress that it has caused, I want to turn this into something good. The best motivation you can have when you've had a negative experience is not to be toxic back and be angry and wish them terrible things like many of the people in this community are doing, but instead to turn this whole negative experience into a positive one. And so to reward all of you for making it this far, I'm very pleased to tell you that I have linked the finished boat build in the description of this video for you to download. Simply click the 3 dots next to the game and and then click Edit in Studio. You're welcome to use the boat for any of your projects, no credit or compensation needed. You're also welcome to use any of the assets for your own projects too. This boat is yours. Finally, I want to clarify that I'm not telling you my story today because I want you to feel sorry for me or stroke my ego or anything. I'm doing this because I know that there are a lot of you out there who have gone through very similar things. I want to validate you and ensure you that what happened to you was not your fault, and it shouldn't be excused or dismissed. When you put your heart and soul into your creations, just to have someone you barely know act like they know everything about you and your work, I know it can make you doubt your abilities and doubt yourself as a person, but it's so important to remember that the people who try to pick apart who you are and what you make are usually doing it because it's something that they have been subjected to, and for many, it's all they know. For this reason, it's so important to treat people with patience and politeness, because that's always a better answer than getting angry and becoming toxic yourself. Be the better person, and most importantly, encourage other developers. And if you see something wrong with their work, you can point it out respectfully and give options for how they can improve. It's what we do in my Discord server, discord.gg/hollers. It's full of kind developers that care about helping you improve, rather than putting you down to bring themselves up. I want to give my most sincere thanks to all of you for your patience with this video. It was meant to release on Friday last week, and as you can see, that did not happen. I especially want to give a big thank you to the people who are in the premiere right now, because this video is very long and I really appreciate that you sat through all of it. Also a huge thank you to these YouTube members for their infinite patience with me. I'm really embarrassed that I take your money and promise that I release videos early for you guys, and then things like this happen where I just can't get it out on time. But yeah, that's the end of the video, I suppose. So thank you very much. Continue to be kind and uplifting to others like I know you do, and hopefully I will see you next week. Goodbye, friends.